Okay, so welcome to our panel. It's on the student perspectives of experiential learning. My name is Catherine Lithgow. I'm going to be hosting the session, and it is my pleasure to be able to pull together a group of students to tell us about experiential learning and the impact that it's had on their learning and their growth and development. So with me today, I've got Connor Plant. He's in political science. He's in 4B. He's a co-op student. He's a former Co-op Affairs Commissioner, and he's currently the chair of the Board of Directors, Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association. Next to Connor, I've got Brianna Bennett. I just work with her, I should know her. She's in Honours Biology. She too is a co-op student. She's a CTE project assistant, and she's going to tell us, among other things, but about a course-based experiential learning opportunity that she had. I've got MJ Singh. MJ is an arts major. She's working towards a double degree in English, rhetoric, media and professional communication, and political science. She's going to be going into her 4B term in the spring. She's a co-op student, and she's currently working with WATPD as a teaching assistant. And last but not least, I've got Nathan Nagallo. He's a Bachelor of Science candidate, Honours Kinesiology with the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences. He's pursuing the EDGE certificate, and he's currently a Residence Life Don. So please give the panelists a warm welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So I just wanted you to know that I'll be asking some questions, but there'll also be opportunities for you to ask the panelists questions directly. If you don't want to speak from the floor, or a question occurs to you as the students are speaking, you can always use our app. And we've got Rachel, who will be monitoring it. So to post questions to the app, you just click on the name of this session, scroll down to the bottom, and there's a little question and answer link, so you can post that, so we'll be looking at that as well. Okay, so to get us started, I wanted to just give the participants an opportunity to tell them a little bit about themselves and maybe give us an example or two of an experiential learning opportunity that you've had in a course or a co-op or while you're pursuing the EDGE certificate, or anything that was particularly meaningful to you and why. Okay, so should we start with Connor?
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. As was mentioned, last year I had the unique opportunity to be the Co-op Affairs Commissioner for what was then FEDS. Now we know ourselves as WUSA. But in that role, in a way, that was a experiential learning in itself, doing that role right there. But I had the opportunity to work with many of the staff at Co-op in advancing some great initiatives for the benefit of the students and Co-op students. So that definitely was a great form of experiential education right there. Another one that I've had, I am a co-op student myself, I actually go back to my very first co-op term as probably my most memorable one, and I worked for a very small municipality outside of Peterborough that I had never heard of before, and I suspect most of you wouldn't have heard of the township of Duro-Dummer, but there ended up being lots of advantages to working for a very small employer, because then you really get to be immersed in everything they're doing. And part of the main task was working with them to develop a new Parks and Recreation master plan. Often these are done, in any large municipality. If the city of Waterloo was doing one, they would probably just source it out to a consultant to do it. But since this was a very small municipality, it was just myself and the manager working on it. So it was a very unique opportunity, and the one thing that I really remember from it was being able to present to council, gave monthly updates, project updates, and kind of towards the end of the term was a final presentation of the plan that we had developed through lots of background research and community consultation sessions and the like. In an open meeting of council, I gave about a half an hour presentation to council on the plan, and then took Q&A from council and the audience. I mean, it is a public meeting, although the audience is very small. It was mainly the members of council, as you can imagine. But that's one of all the co-op terms I've had. I still consider that one the most memorable. It was the first one, and I know sometimes people are always like, oh, you know, you just have to get that first one in. It might not be the best, but for me, it actually was the opposite. Not that the later ones haven't been great as well, but that was an experiential learning event that was really great.
Great, thank you, Connor. And Brianna.
I'm Brianna, so I am a co-op student, and I'm also I also worked on a project back in Women's Studies 100, which Trevor Holmes instructed, and he developed a project that we were able to do experiential learning in class. So we had the option of going to the archives in the library and transcribing some like archival material. So it was a great idea for a 100-level course, because you actually, like, the little 100-level students get into the library, they figure out that we actually have archive collections, and we get to hold these archival pieces and work together as a community to try and translate them, and we actually digitalized a bunch of them. So that was awesome. But other than that experience, I am also a co-op student. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of co-op terms, all 5. I worked with Velocity and the Center for Teaching Excellence for a lot of them. And I also worked at the Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory. So a very unique like repertoire. It doesn't really relate to my biology program directly, but I'm also super interested in teaching. So I think one of my best terms was working at the Center for Teaching Excellence, and I promise I didn't get paid to say that. But we got to do like develop your skills, and it really gave me like a passion for post-secondary teaching rather than elementary teaching, which I thought I was definitely going into.
Thanks, Brianna. MJ.
Hi, everyone. So for me, I'm a double major in political science and English. So with my experiences, I've always tried to satisfy both of those pathways. So thankfully, I've had experiences in both of them. I've worked at Sheridan College as an English learning assistant, so helping lots of ESL students, which is a great experience to help those newcomers to Canada. And then for political science, I've worked at a municipality, so another small municipality in Elmira, the township of Woolwich. Anybody's from there. And that was a great experience as well. So I got to dip my toes into sort of both of those areas of my degree and sort of see what I want to do. And it really helps to sort of give experience in both of those ways.
Great, thanks, MJ. And Nathan.
Good morning. So for myself, I'm not a co-op student. I'm actually in the EDGE program, so I'm about to complete my EDGE certificate. So what that basically means is that the EDGE program is for non-co-op students who want to kind of take their extracurriculars or their part-time jobs and kind of learn from it. So for myself, I've completed a bunch of my milestones already through volunteer work, through part-time jobs, currently as a residence life dawn. So for the EDGE program, for me, I think the real beneficial part is allowing you to articulate on your skills and the things that you've learned and the things that you've developed, and hopefully how can that apply to your personal life, your professional life, and also your academic life. So I think the EDGE program has done that for me in terms of taking all those activities and all those endeavors that I've partaken in and kind of hopefully just learn from it and move forward from there.
Great, thanks, Nathan. So next I'd like to maybe just delve in a little bit more about what was your motivation for undertaking these experiential learning opportunities. I'm curious what you were hoping to get out of it, and if your expectations were met, and how did that impact your learning?
I guess I'll start off. So like I just mentioned, I've done previous work in the volunteering realm, the part-time jobs, and all of that is great, but at the end of the day, if you are not able to reflect on that, if you're not able to take what you've learned and try to move forward, then to me, I think that's not doing yourself any good. So through the EDGE program, I think allowing me to kind of articulate on those skills was something that I was hoping to gain out of it. And through PD courses, through completing reflection assignments at the end of the term of the milestones that you've completed, it's allowed you to kind of take a step back and see what you've learned and what you've developed in. Because I think when you're in the moment, when you're working a certain job or you're volunteering, it's hard to kind of take a step back and see what you're trying to learn and see what you're trying to develop in. So for myself, I think completing those things at the end of the term and also speaking to advisors and different people that have allowed me to partake in those opportunities was real beneficial for me in terms of highlighting those skills and allowing myself to kind of develop and see what I can do in the future.
All right. So for me, co-op, approaching like the end of my degree in fourth year, I see a lot of my peers graduating from other schools, but they haven't had any co-op experience. So I do see them struggling. So experience is a big one for me. Just getting those extra jobs on your resume that will help you after you graduate, and also money. In all honesty, like it's great to be able to pay for school as well. So it really helps overall.
Also, I can totally relate to the money thing. In first year, I mean, like coming to university, I remember my mom and I sitting down and looking at all these different programs, and I really noticed that like Waterloo was big on co-op. And as a little high school student, I didn't really understand what co-op meant because in high school you can do co-op, but it's unpaid. It does count for courses, but the ability to get paid for like doing work within your studies really integrates it so that you are able to pay for your education, which is awesome. And then again, for me, when I was a little high school student, I didn't realize that work experience would be so valuable. I can totally relate to MJ in the sense that I see all these people graduating who did 4-year degree programs, and they might not have like immersed themselves in the right experiences to have like real life work experience to get hired if they're looking for employment after. And then going back to my course experience in the Women's Studies 101 course, I chose to do the archival assignment because I thought it was a unique opportunity rather than writing like another 2,000 word essay. And it really gave you that hands-on work and immersed you in like research before, like in a 100 level course before you got into bigger research projects, which I thought was valuable.
I was just trying to think back to what my thinking was in high school, and I can't exactly pinpoint probably why I chose. I definitely know I chose Waterloo because of the co-op program. Other than that, I was told it was a good route to go. I guess that's why I chose it, but I mean that was close to 5 years ago now, so I don't exactly remember what I was thinking. But in terms of like, it certainly far exceeded my expectations. You kind of hear, you might have some good co-ops, some not so great. I mean, all of mine were terrific. And then just in terms of, as was said earlier, I mean, I know there's no way I'd have the opportunities that I have right now being about to graduate in terms of job offers if I had not done a co-op program.
Okay, great, thank you. Something else I'd like to talk about is we know that experiential learning helps people make connections between what's happening in the classroom with academic, their professional development, but it also helps with your personal development. And I'm wondering if you could speak maybe a little bit about what you learned about yourselves, maybe as your residence Dawn or as your work with WUSA or any of your other co-op or experiential learning things. So maybe your personal growth and development as a result of these.
I would say one thing for me would definitely be just being more confident in public speaking settings. Coming out of going back to that first co-op experience, just kind of being thrown into the fire, if you will, of having to present to a council and kind of open public meetings that just kind of forced me to go out of my comfort zone. And even probably doing something like this is something I never would have wanted to do beforehand. So that was a big one for me. And just beyond that, just having the just gaining self-confidence in general, and just kind of seeing that you do have the skills that employers are looking for, And even just talking to some career advisors, they say that's one of their biggest frustrations is students come in and they think they don't have any marketable job skills, and then once they sit down and start thinking about it, they actually do. So when in all those co-op experiences, you have your evaluations with your supervisor, and they go over some strengths and weaknesses with you. That really it helps you get better for future co-op terms, but it also kind of gives you the confidence to know what you're doing well in.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead.
Is it-
Yeah. Okay, perfect. For me, it was really like the personal growth was kind of determining what field I wanted to go into, because I was in I am in honors biology. But the first year courses are so general, and you don't really get a feel for exactly like what you want to do after school. So when I started working at, for example, the Center for Teaching Excellence, I realized that, okay, maybe I want to work in education. I don't want to be like a traditional scientist and work in a lab, but rather like maybe teach STEM-related courses. And also, it helps you, like, I was involved in the research team at CTE, and it helps you realize like for me, I realized like what research is. It's not traditionally like sitting in the classroom and looking at all these lit reviews. There's other options. So yeah, I think it just it helps you refine your tastes.
Okay. For me, I would say adaptability. I think with co-op, because it's, usually 4 months, can be 8, it's a short amount of time, you have to realize that you're sort of being thrown into like a working machine. So Connor said, like putting out fires and sort of getting thrown into the fire. You're moving through different organizations. So just learning to be adaptable from like a school term to a work term into different industries as you're moving around and having different experiences, I think co-op has just helped me to become really adaptable in different scenarios.
I think for myself, it would be confidence. I'm trying to recall back to when I first signed up for the EDGE program. I believe my first milestone was as the operations coordinator for the campus response team. And I remember completing my final reflection for the term. And one of the things that I wanted to develop in was confidence. And I remember just being a very shy person. I wasn't that person to take the first step. I didn't take initiative. So I think I was able to see that because of that reflection that I completed at the end of the term. And that was something I really wanted to develop in. And I remember after I completed it, I kind of took a step back and I was like, whoa, this is something that I want to kind of move forward with and learn from. So I remember from that point on, I put my EDGE reflection on my wall. And I woke up every morning and I said, that's what I'm going to try and achieve every day. So from that, I kind of tried to put myself in situations that could help me improve my confidence. And I'm trying to think back to the different milestones that I've completed, and I think I've done that. I want to say I did, and I think because of that reflection assignment, and because of taking that step back and kind of seeing what I wanted to learn from, I think I was able to grow in that confidence and hopefully keep going in the future.
Well, that's warming my heart. I'm sure it's warming a few other people. Let's talk a little bit about, you've mentioned that you've had a diverse range of experiences. What kind of preparation or advanced preparation were you given to prepare you for those experiences? Or was there steps that you took yourself if there wasn't formal preparation? What did you do to prepare for that?
I don't think there was any formal preparation. I think I just mentioned, but for me, one experience led to the next. So because of those reflections and me being able to see what I wanted to grow in and what areas I wanted to develop in, it led me to the next experience. So from that experience with the campus response team, I worked as a brand ambassador for marketing and undergraduate recruitment. And I didn't know what to expect. It was a tough job because you had to get in front of a camera every Thursday and talk about your experiences, and that was something that was very daunting to me. But because of the aspect that I wanted to improve in my confidence, this is something that I had to do in order to do that. So from that point on, it led me to the next opportunity, which is currently right now as a Residence Life Dawn. Being that upper year support to first year students. You have to be confident in order to do that, and you have to be that face when they need some support. So for me, there wasn't any formal presentation. I think everything happened kind of organic to me, and one thing just led to the other.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think as you move through your experiences, you just sort of build upon them, and again, adapt that way. For political science, we, because experiential learning is a part of like a pathway that you can take in order to graduate, we have a class, PSI 299, right, Connor? PSI 299, Professor Mufti? Okay, great. So that's the class that we have to take, and that really helps with preparing you for the workplace as well. So that's integrated into learning and is helpful. Also, I've just found in like preparing myself is asking other people who've maybe had that job and my peers and you know asking them what the job is like is also really helpful, and asking upper year students. So just sort of finding your network and gaining some knowledge through that is also helpful.
Thank you.
Awesome. So thinking back to my archival work, similar to what MJ said, is having like the mentors were really helpful. So our professor, Dr. Holmes, and Jessica Blackwell from the archives were really helpful in guiding us on that project and making sure that we don't feel discouraged or we don't feel like we're not learning. And in fact, we are learning and we're helping like build community. And then co-op wise, I don't think I really did anything to prepare other than you take these PD courses, and in the PD courses you learn how to develop resume skills and how to write cover letters, which I think totally helped, because although I did a lot of part-time work in high school, I don't think a lot of students do, and so they go into it pretty blind, not knowing how to write a cover letter or dictate like their experiences on a resume. So that was helpful.
Yeah, I would say even if I at the time wasn't thinking of it in that sense of why I was doing it, but you know, part-time work, volunteer work in high school, I think really helps. You know, if you're going into your first ever co-op interview and that's your first interview period that you've ever had, you're probably going to be pretty nervous and not know what to expect, and then therefore you're not going to do as well on if you had already had, you know, even if it was a job that you didn't think had a whole lot of, even if you didn't think it took a lot of skill, you actually were developing even soft skills through that part-time job. So I think that's a big one. As well, I know everyone, like students in general, like to hate on PD1, but it's actually not a bad. It's not a bad course, and I think if maybe they look back on it now, they might realize more that there were some benefits in there, even if they're just kind of rolling their eyes while doing it. They are inherently getting some preparation from that. And I think the other one that I know it's another cliche thing that you know, you should always know something about the company when you're going in for a job interview, but I don't, in my experience, I've always I've seen them, you know, people that are interviewing me like seem like genuinely surprised when I've, you know, made a comment that showed even just a little bit of knowledge about the company, which implies to me that, you know, not a whole lot of students are necessarily doing that background research. So I think that one was always really helpful for me.
Great. Thank you. So I hear we have a couple of questions. Oh, and a mic, great. So Rachel's going to just read some of the questions that have come from the audience here.
So I can read the first one, which is, what are your career goals and how have your experiences set you up for success?
Anyone want to start? What are your career goals and how has anyone?
How have your experiences set you up for success?
Well, my career goal is to work in the public service. Don't really have a specific level of government, but that's public policy and administration is the field that I'm really interested in. My last two co-ops have been with the federal government as a policy analyst and business analyst, respectively. So it's that's kind of what, I mean, that was always my interest, obviously being in political science, but that kind of just it reassured me that what I was studying was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And you know, there's opportunities to go back to those employers now. So you know, in that perspective, obviously, it's been very beneficial.
Okay, I think this is a very loaded question because I don't know what my career goals are yet. And I think that's okay, and it's taken me a while to accept that. I do know I originally, again, wanted to go to teacher's college. I was so set on being like a grade 4 teacher, but I know I don't want to do that now. So my experiences have definitely led me to that. I've worked at the Center for Teaching Excellence on co-op for about 12 months in total for like co-op terms, and I think that helped me realize that I probably want to pursue like a master's in education eventually, and like career-wise, work at a post-secondary institution, and maybe in instructional developing or like student advising or somehow like interacting with students in a capacity.
Yes, I would say it's a loaded question. Career goal-wise, I don't have like a set goal either, but I think all my experiences have provided me with like a network that I can reach out to, and I can, you know, interact with to sort of get different experiences. My program, like the English side of it, is very weird and adaptable as well. So, you know, there's lots of like tech jobs that I could maybe do and be a technical writer, or like new and emerging like user experience writer. Where's the great place to be for that? Waterloo. So it's really just having the tools in my back pocket to then find something and then excel in it, which I think is really helpful.
My career goal is to eventually become a physician. And how have my experiences set me up for success? I think, you know, grades is gonna get your foot in the door. But I think, you know, what's gonna allow you to enter the room is how you interact with people, how you present yourself, how you market your skills. And I think being in the EDGE program, completing all these milestones have helped me out a lot in terms of, you know, communicating with others and trying to market myself in the best way possible. So I think that's how my experiences have helped me fall in line with what I want to do in the future.
Thanks.
So the second question is, we also just got a third. How has reflection helped your development throughout your experiential learning journey to this point?
Yeah, I think reflection is huge. You know, like I said before, when you're working, when you're completing a milestone, it's so easy to get caught up in that, and it's easy to stay focused, which is fantastic. But it doesn't really give you a lot of room to reflect on what you're doing and what you're trying to really improve. So completing those reflection assignments is basically just taking a step back and allowing to see what you've learned and how you can kind of develop in the future.
I guess for me, I would say the work term reports that we have to do, because, you know, you're on the job and you're doing the job, but at the end of it, you have to convey to someone what you actually did, and sort of taking a step back and looking at your experience from that angle and then having to communicate that is a really reflective process that I think is helpful and sort of helps you to realize what skills you actually did gain and what experiences you actually did gain. So the work term reports is what I would say.
Yeah, I can also relate to the work term reports, but with science, they tend to be pretty technical and data heavy. So I find like once you have completed the report and look back on it, it's a reflective experience, but while you're writing it, it's a little difficult. And relating to what Nathan said about being in the job and like you're just kind of like hustling, and you don't really realize what you're doing until you take a minute at the end of the term, and maybe it's in like your final evaluation and you look back with your supervisor at all the things that you completed and the skills that you developed. So I think like having mentors have really helped me like articulate my skills.
Yeah, I think the employer evaluation is always a big one, and I know there's a part on it that it's optional for a student response or a student reflection to it, and I believe it was either in my second or third work term, my manager made me do it. She said, no, like you have to write something before I submit it. So that kind of forced me to do it, and it was very beneficial because then it kind of forced me to actually think about the job, what I did, what I learned on the job, what areas did I not cover, and then those type of things you might want to look for when applying for future co-op work terms, so you're kind of covering as many bases as possible. And as well with the work term, the work term reports also kind of something that makes you think about those things as well. And also another one kind of after, often it might not be immediately after, but as you're then coming up to your next co-op work term, you have to go back and update your resume to reflect the previous term. And that's another opportunity that it forces you to think again as you're trying to come up with a few bullet points. What did I actually learn on the job that would be important to convey now for future employment?
Great. Before we move to the next question, I just wanted to give each of you an opportunity maybe to comment on how experiential learning connected to your academic studies. So we talked a lot about professional growth and development. Can you say a bit about how it impacted your academic courses?
I think for me, it definitely made me more focused in my academics. Maybe in first and second year, I was just kind of going through the motions, and you're not really you know what you want to do when you're coming out of high school, but you don't really know, and you don't really know if you've made the right decision. And then, so for me, especially in those early work terms, when you're getting on the job, you're realizing, yes, this is something I really like doing and could see myself doing. So then for me personally, I don't know if it's something that happens broadly, but it did make me more focused in school, and saw an improvement on the academic side. As well, kind of, it's made me look at other academic plans, and within the Department of Political Science, there's a minor in public policy and administration. And once I had kind of worked in a policy analyst role, and it was something I really enjoyed, and I saw that it was that minor was offered, then I added that as an additional component to my plan. Which I probably never would have sought that out if it hadn't been for those work experiences.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of my co-ops weren't exactly related to science directly, but from an academic perspective, sometimes in our general first and second year courses, you're like, why am I learning this? Why do I care if I don't want to go into this field? Why do I need to know calc if I don't want to use calc, and that kind of stuff. But working in, for example, when I was at the Butterfly Conservatory, I really appreciated the stuff that I did learn in my biology courses, and that I could actually use that in the working world, which I think a lot of students don't realize. And so it kind of motivates you to learn. And also the whole sequence of mostly 4 months in your academic term and then 4 months working, you kind of feel more motivated to get through the term, at least I did, and you're looking forward to kind of a summer of work, even though it might not be a summer.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a Canadian politics minor that I can do now. I had that co-op at the municipality, and then the next semester I had a local government class, so I had a huge leg up in that class after having that experience, and was able to really participate in discussion. I had that class with Connor. It was a great class. So it just sort of directly overlapped in that way, and sometimes it can be unique and interesting in sort of seeing how two parts of your life fit together. Is how it overlapped.
I think completing the milestones through the EDGE certificate has kind of allowed me to set my mind on what I wanted to do in the future. And with that being said, there's a lot of structure and there's a lot of planning if you want to go down the route of going to medical school or some sort of professional school. So I think allowing me to articulate on the skills and my career goals helped me a lot with academic planning, and also motivated me a lot to do well in the classroom as well.
Thank you. Is there anyone who has questions on the floor? No? I think we have one more. Yeah.
So the last question is a two-parter. The first part is, how do you think we, as practitioners, can reach the silent majority of students to share the benefits of experiential learning / work-integrated learning? And how can we improve our communication?
So the first part is kind of reaching out to those who are not doing experiential learning right now. Is that the first part?
Yeah, or just sharing the benefits of
Okay,
experiential
gotcha.
learning.
Well, I think I can only speak out of personal experience. Experiential learning has done a lot for me. I think it's easy to say that you want to do something in the future. It's easy to say that you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, but if you don't really set yourself out into situations where you can kind of picture yourself doing it, then I don't think I think you're kind of selling yourself short. So through experiential learning, I think I've allowed myself to dive into different realms and see what's really for me and really articulate my skills, and hopefully I can use that moving forward in order to get to where I want to be. And the second part, how can we communicate better? Sorry, my bad.
What was the second part again?
Yeah, it was how can practitioners communicate better the benefits of experiential learning?
I think just like this, sharing our experiences and then sharing what we've gone through through our past undergraduate career, I think is really beneficial. Because I think it's easy to say at one standpoint, but if you have the perspective of someone who's actually doing it, then I think that would be really beneficial as well.
Yeah, to hop off that, it's definitely to see more tangible results. So as I said earlier, I've been having this conversation a lot with my peers about looking at other students who are graduating right now and who don't have any experience. You really sort of see wow, okay, I've had many great opportunities and I can use them. So I think in order to communicate that experiential learning is a great opportunity, maybe just more peer-to-peer sort of conversations and getting to hear more from upper year students and seeing those results, it really helps you to sort of visualize what exactly are those experiences, what jobs have people been doing. That sort of information is really helpful to help you visualize that.
Yeah, I agree. And to answer both parts of the question kind of in one, I think peer mentors would be a great idea, and I don't know if they exist, because I think for students, thinking back to my first year in residence, it's one thing that you are or maybe in a co-op program, or maybe you're not, but in first year you have a lot of flexibility, from my understanding, that you can switch into a co-op program if you want. And so kind of broadcasting that to students and having those first year students learn about the experiences that upper year students have had, I think could be valuable. And again, it's one thing to have the information on a website, but if those students that aren't interested in experiential learning aren't going to go on the website, then how are they going to get that information? So kind of having word of mouth or some kind of peer mentor would be great.
I would say in regards to co-op, it's not a silent majority. It's a pretty clear-cut majority. We have 70% of our students are in co-op, so I don't think there's an issue there in communicating that. If the question was more on the lines of non-co-op experiential learning, I definitely think there's room to improve on things like I don't think edge would be, if you said the word edge to a random student on campus, I don't think they would know what you're talking about in terms of information for field courses. That's something like a simple. I know there's probably mass emails sent out and it's on the website, but those aren't always read. A person, as was already stated, hearing it from other students that I took this really great course and I got to go to X and we did Y and it was a really great experience. Those are really meaningful. Or even just a simple announcement from a professor before a lecture, letting students know of an opportunity for a future course, a field course, because often you have to register far in advance, and by the time you hear about it, it might be too late. So I definitely think there's room for improvement in the non-co-op experiential learning opportunities. just even I was at the Sustainable Campus breakout group in the last hour. I had never heard of that was even going on, and I like to think of myself as somewhat informed of what's going on around campus. So those are the type of things that I think there needs to be more communication around.
Great. Lots of good comments and lots of things to think about. Are any follow-up comments or questions? No? Okay, I'll move on to my next one then. We talked a little bit about, let's go to barriers. What barriers do you think exist to either how students participate in these, or we've mentioned some about even encountering the experiential learning? Are there any other barriers that students encounter?
Yeah, well, as was mentioned, if they don't know about it, they can't do it. I mean, that's obvious. But in terms of co-op itself, I think there's some inherent barriers in terms of finances and travel. A lot of, I guess it depends what field you're in, but oftentimes, you need to move out of the region. You can't have a traditional housing situation like your friends do that are going to other universities where, you live in residence first year, you go out, sign a lease at a house second year and live there for the next 3 years when you're done. Here we're talking about every 4 months moving, subletting, being on and off stream with friends. So it really makes the housing situation more difficult, and then you have to find accommodations in another city. For some people, especially if you're experiencing, mental or social anxiety, moving to a brand new city where you might not know anyone, that might seem like more than you can handle, and then you would opt not to participate in it. And then the additional cost of that, I know you're then making income during the co-op term, but you might not be thinking about that when you're weighing the upfront costs. So I think there's some social and financial barriers there, as well as and especially with some marginalized communities. It might be more difficult for an international student that's not immersed in the business etiquette of Canada. It might be more difficult for them to find a job. A student with a disability, and even I know there's lots of supports within co-op for this. So that's not meant to be a criticism, but even at that, some students aren't willing to identify that disability, and then therefore the resources are only accessed by the students that do choose to identify, and leaving some on the outside. So those are some of the barriers I see to participation.
And feel free, as you're commenting, if you've got suggestions that you think might be helpful, we'd love to hear those too.
I totally agree. I was going to mention about students that might face mental health problems. I think that the co-op program in general is pretty intense, and I think we all know that because you're balancing your academic term, but you're also balancing all of these interviews and applying to maybe 50 jobs, going to 5 or 6 interviews, and it's tough. I feel like there's not a lot of time in the day. But especially for those students that don't identify with accessibility services, Personally, I don't know how they would get help. I'm sure there is help out there. Another thing I was thinking about was academics and marks. I was confused at first why our transcript is automatically included in our co-op application package, because sometimes I feel that marks don't necessarily define a student and their work potential. I get some employers definitely want it. If you're working at Sunnybrook Hospital in a state-of-the-art research lab, that's probably important. But especially from first year, because I think a lot of students struggle in first year and their marks really won't reflect their university experience. I think my marks in first year were 20% lower than they are now. So. And that stays on that transcript whenever an employer is going back and looking through your history. But yeah.
I would say that I think a lot of students can be sort of discouraged by competition because it's pretty well known that our co-op program is big. We have lots of positions, but that there's also lots of like sort of cutthroat competition for these jobs. And I've heard like lots of students sort of be discouraged about that and saying like, oh, I know I might not get a job this term, but you know, I'll keep trying sort of thing. With that, again, just to help students, I think support, like one-on-one support with upper years is also really good, just so they can get advice on, you know, if they have to go into continuous for finding those co-op jobs, how can they sort of manage that? I think just support and lifting other students up who are feeling discouraged about the competition could be really helpful, but that's definitely a little barrier that they might face.
Particularly for the EDGE program, I think in terms of non-co-op programs, there's a huge push for students and trying to encourage them to sign up for the EDGE program and you know, use that as a benefit. However, in programs like mine, such as kinesiology and perhaps other programs in AHS, we have a vast majority of students that are in co-op and then also a good number of students that are in the regular program. What I've noticed is that there is not a lot of push for the EDGE program in those mixed programs. So if we could kind of encourage the EDGE program as well in a diverse student population such as that, I think that would be fantastic. I just, you know, it would suck if people thought that, you know, co-op was the only option to get some sort of experiential learning. You know, we should let them know that, you know, EDGE program is an option for them, especially if, you know, co-op is not in their radar, and hopefully they could use that to their advantage moving forward.
And just one more thing I wanted to say on, yeah, you know, how can we, you know, help students in some of these stresses that have been mentioned. I think the big one, and this isn't anything new, but making sure reasonable expectations are set is key. You know, when you come into the university, you know, it's this big, you know, monster of an operation of co-op. You know, you're applying to there's thousands of jobs of Waterloo Works that you have to try and sort through, and you know, you're going into the Tatham Center and there's, you know, 100 interviews going on at a time. So, you know, setting those reasonable expectations so students can at least have all the information they need to best manage their time, and you know how many jobs they could expect to apply to, how long that's going to take. You know, explaining what, you know, continuous round means. It's not, you know, some scary thing. There's actually lots of other students that are going through the exact same process as you are. So if students can be as prepared and given as all the information that's available to them to be able to set those expectations, it helps mitigate all these things that have been mentioned. I mean, it'll never eliminate everything, but at least if you know what's coming, you can prepare for it.
Great, thank you. We've got about 10 minutes before lunch, so I just want to give each of the panelists an opportunity. Is there anything that you'd like to comment on that you haven't been asked directly, or a statement like to make? Go ahead.
I just want to go off the last thing and emphasize peer support again. I think that's a big one. When I worked at the college, a lot of students were like scared to talk to their professors or go and see administration for any help because they see it as sort of like a scary system. And I know professors are great, you guys are all great and super helpful, but like a peer-to-peer, like talking to another face, a face that's in the same position as you are, is really, really helpful with sort of calming those fears. I know a lot of the time, like, even if you want to go make an appointment to go see an advisor, even just like being in the waiting room can be a bit of a scary process as well. And knowing like you have to go talk to someone. So like more events with talking to upper year students, I think is really like calming and is a good environment to be able to talk to.
Great, thank you. Brianna, anyone have any other comments they want to address? Make? We have a question. Yep.
Who do you think should organize the peer groups and the peer support? Because the Student Success Office does offer some peer mentoring, say within the political science departments and since that's the major you're following, both you and Connor, who should be organizing all the peer support? Should it be coming from the undergraduate associate chair? Should it be coming from the academic advisors? Or should it be the political science student association? Because there's student associations in other departments as well. Who should be doing it?
I think when it's something that can be organized by the student association, that's always the best way to do it. I know across campus at both the faculty level and then at the department level, there's varying strengths of the student association. Some faculties have very strong student associations, some not so much. So I think when they have the capacity to do so, to organize it, and of course, include someone from, invite someone from co-op or from the undergrad office to come out, of course. That should be done, but when it's student-led, I think students are more likely to attend themselves when they see it's their peers leading it and running it rather than something being put on by the university. But I think if there was a lack of capacity or just some years it really depends just on who the students are in the roles. If the association is even running, then when there's those gaps, it would be nice if that could be something then facilitated by the department themselves if they're able to step in to fill that gap in certain years. But
Any other questions or comments?
I was just going to add to that, Catherine.
thank you.
I think it kind of depends what kind of peer leaders you want. So, for example, if you want a peer leader to advise about like co-op situations, because maybe going to a co-op advisor is super scary, then having like them based out of co-op would make sense. Or maybe in residences, if we see a lot of our students are there that are first years and they're looking into the co-op program. Or also it could be course-based, like going up to an instructor sometimes can be scary, or even going to TAs because you know that they mark your work a lot of the time. And you just want to ask them a simple question, like maybe in those general first year and second year courses that have over 600 students in them, having some peer support in those would be helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking Connor and Brianna and MJ and Nathan for sharing these experiences and their thoughts with us. We don't often get enough opportunity to talk to students, and we're really glad that you were able to take time out and share it with us. So thanks.